Hey, I'm Kevin, and this is HFX by Bike, a channel all about getting around Halifax by bike. In today's video, I'm making a short early morning trip from the Hydrostone neighbourhood in North End Halifax to the Dilly Dally Café in the South End. It snowed overnight, and I really wanted a snowy video during the winter, since I always seem to be out of town when there's fresh powder. As always, I'll be playing a game of +1 - 2 along the way. Every time I run into something that makes my trip safer or more convenient, I'll add a point, and every time I run into something that makes it less safe or less convenient, I'll take 2 away. You can keep track of how I think the ride is going by looking at the heads-up display in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm starting out on Stanley Back Lane in Hydrostone. I'm immediately on the North End Bikeway, which I'm going to use to head south to get to Almond Street. I'm filming this just as morning rush hour is starting to kick off, and just after a small dusting of snow. I'm riding overly cautiously since I don't really have a good sense of what the road conditions are going to be on any given stretch of the trip. Most of the drivers I come across are doing the same thing. The intersection at K Street has a mode filter so that only bikes can go straight through. This section hasn't been cleared, but I'm not having any problems with it. I'm not taking any points off for snow clearing because it stopped snowing essentially minutes before I turned on the camera, and that seems a bit unfair. Most of this section of the bikeway has traffic calming features in place, including things like speed bumps and widened shoulders at intersections. You do have to wait for a gap in traffic at Almond Street, although I've never really had much of an issue with it. It won't show in the video, but the intersection of the bikeway with Almond Street has another sign-based mode filter for northbound traffic. I'm making the turn onto Almond. There's a protected bike lane under construction that's been in the planning stages for about a decade. This section just gets sharrows, which is fake bike infrastructure on a major road. This section currently looks like a painted lane, but it's eventually supposed to get a proper barrier installed if I understand the design sketches correctly. The bike lane carries through at each of the intersections. Just before Gladstone, the lane switches from being an on-road to a curb-protected bike lane, which is much nicer as a user experience and improves safety. I'm at the intersection with Windsor Street, and as far as I can tell, there's no way for me to make the left turn I need to in order to continue. I assume they're going to install a bike signal or a turn box of some kind later on, but for now it just makes this end of the bike lane annoying to use. To get around this, I'm going to dismount and make a 2-stage crossing. You also have the option of just leaving the bike lane early and making a left with traffic. Moving on to the Windsor Street painted bike lanes, these are going to carry me most of the rest of the way southbound. The bike lane cuts out at the infamous Quantum intersection to make room for a turn lane for cars. The painted bike lane is not a loading zone. I'm going to use this short multi-use path to connect up to the Vernon Bikeway. The intersection at Quinpool has another sign-based mode filter. I'm coming up to the cafe now, and for the first time ever in one of my trip videos, I was in one form of bike infrastructure or another for the entire trip, which was about 3 kilometers, so here are the bonus points. And of course, there's bike parking on site. My trip from the Hydrostone to Dilly Dally Café took about 14 minutes, which is quite slow for a trip of this distance. The low travel speed was in large part due to the weather. I had more or less intentionally rode out to film immediately after a small snowfall left the streets pretty slick. The estimated travel time for the same trip is 8 to 12 minutes by car and 18 by transit. Outside of slower riding conditions, the car and the bike would plausibly make this trip in roughly the same amount of time. As far as I can remember, this is the first trip video I've recorded where I was inside of the bike network from start to finish. This was doable in large part because of the still under construction Almond Street bike lanes, which allow east-west movement on the peninsula somewhere other than the Commons. This kind of improvement is what you'd hope to see as the bike network becomes more mature and interconnected. Overall, this kind of trip is pretty doable and will likely improve along with the Almond Street bike lanes and the eventual upgrade of Windsor Street. That's it for this one. Let me know what kind of trips around the city you'd like to see covered or local businesses that I should visit by going to the video request map linked in the description. If you like this kind of thing, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. As always, thanks for watching and see you next time.